Judges in the Netherlands are beginning hearing evidence against 4 men suspected of being behind the downing of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH17 over eastern Ukraine nearly 7 years ago. The 3 Russians and a Ukrainian national are still at large. They're facing murder charges and absentia. All 298 people on board MH17 died when the plane was shot down. Families of the victims are bracing to hear painful details.
A tree for each of the people who never returned. The memorial site next to Schiphol Airport has 298 trees in total. 3 of them are dedicated to Piet Ploeg's family. He lost his brother, his sister-in-law, and their son on board flight MH17.
They left 2 daughters who didn't go with them on holidays. 2 young daughters at the time, and so yeah, I had to tell the daughters that their father and mother and brother died, and I had to tell my parents, who were in the hospital at the time. So that was very shocking. Yeah.
Piet Ploeg chairs a foundation bringing together thousands of next of kin. He says the MH17 disaster had a real impact on all of Dutch society.
When the bodies were repatriated, the whole Dutch nation was watching it on television. It was terrible, but it was also very, very beautiful that there was so much compassion among the Dutch people.
Flight MH17 took off here at Schiphol Airport and never reached its final destination in Malaysia. Now, after years of investigations, a court here in the Netherlands is determined to find out what exactly happened on that fateful day in 2014, and also who is responsible.
At the center of this inquiry are the remnants of the Boeing 777, here being viewed by the court. A massive jigsaw puzzle that was pieced back together in a Dutch military base. The crash site 7 years ago. All 298 on board the plane were killed when it was blown out of the sky over a war zone in eastern Ukraine. Evidence points to a Buk anti-aircraft system which was moved from Russia into rebel territory, controlled by pro-Russian separatists. These 4 men will stand trial. They remain at large, allegedly protected by Russia. Those representing the victims' families say this doesn't make the case any less important.
Law has a long arm, also in time. Can take 5, can take 10 years, maybe 15 years. And Mr. Putin and his regime will not always be in power. So maybe if there's a shift in government and if there will be a shift in policy, also there will be a shift in policy in this file. So they will have no rest, these suspects. I'm sure of that. Yeah.
Piet Ploeg, on the other hand, says he doesn't care that much whether the suspects go to jail. He just wants the truth to be spoken.
I think it's important that we know what the role of the Russia, if they had a role, what the role of the Russian Federation was. Not only who pushed the button, but also who was in the end responsible for all what happened. So this can take years.
And even 7 years after MH17 crashed, he's determined to see this through until the end.
And our correspondent Max Zander, who filed that report, joins us now from Amsterdam. Max, it's been 7 years since the downing of MH17. What sort of evidence are the judges expected to hear in this trial?
Yeah, so up until now, this trial has been dealing with mainly procedural issues, and now this week we are expecting the judges to hear for the first time be presented with the evidence. This is going to be mainly forensic evidence, for example, regarding the wreckage of MH17, the reconstruction that the court had visited roughly a week ago, but also forensic evidence regarding the bodies of the deceased. This is going to include details very difficult to hear for the next of kin, for the family members who are following this trial from all over the world via live stream or here at the courthouse. But this is supposed to give some important insights into what actually brought down flight MH17, and if this was by a missile strike, from where was it fired?
Now, the defendants in this trial, Max, are still at large. They're being tried in absentia. What more do we know about them and their whereabouts?
Right. So these are four men who are supposed to be responsible for the facilitation of this Ploeg surface-to-air missile system. They are not the only responsible people, but they are responsible in this particular court case. These men are three Russian nationals, one Ukrainian national. They all had very important roles within the rebel territory in southeastern Ukraine, and some of them also had important roles within the Russian security apparatus. For example, the rebel leader at the time, Igor Girkin, he was a colonel, he was an intelligence officer with the Russian security service, the FSB, prior to this. Now, they are all believed to be in Russia and in Russian annexed Ukraine, so far away from the reach of Dutch authorities, and they are very unlikely to be extradited if found guilty.
Have investigators in this case, has the court been getting any cooperation from Moscow?
That is a very important question here. So, as far as we know, Russia has been providing some evidence to investigators, though we've heard from people close to this case that, for example, satellite imagery that was provided by Moscow most likely will have been falsified. Russia was not very cooperative from the very beginning. In 2014, when the downing of MH17 first occurred, Russia came up with their own explanation for what happened. They pointed responsibility not to the rebel fighters, but to the Ukrainian Air Force, for example. Also, Russia has been very hesitant has been hesitant in cooperating with the countries involved here. For example, this case would have actually called for a UN tribunal. Moscow vetoed this in the UN Security Council. Moscow also pulled out of trilateral talks with Australia and with the Netherlands after the Dutch government sued Russia at the European Court of Human Rights. So Russia, in a way, was not only not cooperative, but in a way also obstructive.
And I would just point out that we were looking at some live pictures from the courtroom there as you were speaking, Max. That was Max Zander, our correspondent in Amsterdam. Thank you so much.